Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and today we're picking up where we left off, starting here at Top Crossing Hut, heading generally north, back on the Top Crossing Track to Sandy Flat, up the Sandy Flat Track, and then across on Long Spur Track, which you can get onto north of Lake Wimhoff if you want to. And one of the early off-road videos in the 76, I actually did that. I started at Long Spur up here and came down Long Spur Track, so check that one out if you'd like to see the first section of Long Spur. And then we come on to Stockyard Track for 8 kilometres, where it joins Burnt Top Track. Burnt Top Track is a track that should be on everybody's list, in my opinion. As you will see, if you haven't seen it already in a previous video, it's got an epic saddle section between two hills with some great views, and where the track just drops away on both sides. 10 k's of Burnt Top Track to the next junction, where you can head south down to Pineapple Flat, so that's one way to access it, or you can head north on Wild Horse Gap Track up to the Lake Cobbler Road. And not in this video, but in a future video, that's what we'll be doing. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into the video. Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, picking up where we left off back at Top Crossing Hut. And as you just saw on the intro with the map, our plan is to head out from Top Crossing Hut, heading back generally north, back to Sandy Flat, where we cross the King River, and we head up to Long Spur Track, onto Stockyard Track, and then over Burnt Top Track. Some cracking tracks in this. Sandy Flat Track is a lot of fun at the moment. It's a nice drive. Stockyard's got a couple of bog holes. Burnt Top is very different to the last time I did it with Luca. It's been graded since then, so you'll see that as well. So here we are, guys, heading out from Top Crossing Hut, coming back through these river crossings. Still nice and shallow. This one's always very pretty river crossing. Lots of visibility, as you can see there, though not deep at all. Barely coming up to the sidewalls of the tyres. And look, typically that crossing is not usually ever very deep. I don't think I've ever really seen it, probably even above the top of the tyres, to be honest. The crossings back this way, closer to Sandy Flat, can be deeper, but not today. This exit or entrance, depending on your direction here, is a little chewed up, but that's really only going to be an issue when the water's up higher and when it's wet. Dry conditions at the moment, so again, a pretty easy drive. You can see some big rocks there. You particularly don't want to get off the line. You can see camera just went under the water there, so a little bit deeper than the other crossing. And if anything, you want to head downstream on that crossing. Upstream was to the left, and you could see some large rocks in there. So from here, climb back up from the river, head across a little bit to Sandy Flat. And I haven't shown heaps of this track because obviously you guys saw this on the way in to Top Crossing Hut, and you don't really need to see it all on the way out again. So here we are back where that track forks, that second crossing that I did a couple of years ago in the Padge. We're heading down to the end crossing, which is the one most people are going to take at Sandy Flat, and it's a crossing of the King River, and this one can be deep, but not today. So much like the other crossing, you can see a bit of a camp spot there on the right hand side, cracking spot overlooking the river. And again, the water's just crystal clear. You can see exactly what you're getting into today. No need to even think about walking it. A little bit deeper than the other one, but not as deep as the second crossing because the camera doesn't go underwater. But this one has been deeper, that's for sure. The water's been all the way sort of up to where the car is now in the past. So once you cross the King River there at Sandy Flat, you come across, You can head down to the right. There's a bunch of campsites down there, some cracking spots to camp right on the river. You'll see some of those tracks heading off, and a ways down there as well, hidden away, there is a long drop down there, so there's some amenity. Or you can do what we're going to do, which is keep left and head up on the sandy flat track. And this is a seasonally closed track, so hence the gate there at the bottom of the hill. Starts off with this nice long gentle sort of hill. Before you get into it, you do start climbing straight away. So this first section of track here is just 5 kilometres long, and that takes us up to join the Long Spur Track, which you can come in on north of Lake William Hovell if you want to. So if you don't want to drive down around the south side of the lake, you can get onto Long Spur Track just about 4 k's north of the lake, and that'll join up with the top end of Sandy Flat. So up after that initial climb, yeah, you head through the bush here a little bit, and there's this other little stream crossing here. Just a little offshoot of the King River, and again that has never been deep. Nice little rocky crossing. And after that the track gets notably more rocky. You can see some decent sized rocks sort of on the track, some ruts starting to form both from vehicles using the track and from erosion from water running down the track. If this track is wet, it gets super slippery. Hence, that's why it's seasonally closed, because you really don't want to be on this track if it's been raining or if it is actually raining. I did run into a guy that had a crack at this in the rain and turned around and came back. He was a local guy. That was a couple of years ago. You can see here it's chewed up a little bit rocky. Nothing too difficult, just a matter of staying slow and steady. Is a pretty steady, consistent climb from here up to Long Spur. Different times this can have a lot of gravel sitting on it sometimes, and can be a little bit loose on top. And you can see there I've hugged that left-hand bank and avoided some of those holes on the right. Suspension working there, doing its job. Keeping the tyres in contact with the ground, and just taking it nice and slow and steady over all these rocks, and we're coming up on yet another switchback. So plenty of these in the high country. If you drive in the high country much at all, you're hard pressed to avoid these. And again, you can see some erosion gullies forming there. This is one of those tracks that as you get more and more erosion on the track and the rocks get more exposed, I think it's going to get more and more interesting. A few little lumpy spots like this, just a matter of taking it slow and steady, letting the vehicle do the work and climb over the obstacles. Shadow there in the GoPro on the car, just a function of where the sun is. It's pretty low because I did head off pretty early on this day. It is a really nice drive up here. As you can see, we sort of work our way up on the side of the hill. You've got an embankment on one side and then it drops away pretty sharply on the other side. You do get some views down through there a little bit, and it's pretty shaded through here as well. Not a section of track where you're going to have a lot of speed because it is fairly bumpy and rocky. but it is one where you can sort of take your time and just enjoy the drive and enjoy the view a little bit. Not as much as the passengers get to enjoy. That's always the way. If you are with somebody riding the passenger seat, you do tend to see a lot more because you're not as focused on the track ahead as the driver, which is probably a good thing. Good that the driver's focused on the track ahead. That's what I'm meaning to say by that. So again, a little bit lumpy and rocky through here, but at only 5 kilometres long, you cover a lot of that ground in the early section. It's not too long at all before the sandy flat track is over, and we're just coming up here, I think. We're just about there. Another one of those switchbacks. Still been very happy with the Kenda tyres. Running the Kenda rugged terrain. And they're a 33-inch tyre on the 76 at this time. They're wearing well, good grip off-road, and pretty quiet on the road as well for what they are. So yeah, into another good climb. You can see here the track's reasonably narrow, but you would find space to get past someone if you did run into somebody coming the other way. And it changes quickly as well. You can see there it sort of widens out on the corners, a little bit limited by some of the trees for the main section of track. We're still driving in a fair bit of shade here at this point. And yeah, we have reached the end of those 5Ks of sandy flat track. Obviously didn't show the entire thing, so we're turning right here onto Long Spur Track and continue climbing initially. It's just another 3Ks on Long Spur Track before we get on to Stockyard Track. This section of Long Spur's a pretty easy run, although there is just one section with some bog holes. One of the early trips in the 76, I came along this track. I actually came up Long Spur, still running the road terrains back then, and didn't see the bypass, so have driven, yeah, this is the section here, so long time watchers will remember I came through here on the 76, in the 76 with the road terrains, drove that bug hole on the right. The bypass that's on the left was either not there or not as noticeable. I might actually see if I can drop some footage of that in, because that'll be interesting just to compare. So up in the top left, I'll see if I can drop some footage in there of when I drove this in 76 with the road terrains. But yeah, as you can see, a bypass has been carved out on the left hand side here, and it's easy enough to creep around. These days, look, I've certainly been known to drive through mud in the past, but these days if I don't have to, and particularly if I'm solo, why get stuck or risk getting stuck, or probably even more so as I learned the lesson in the pads back in the day, why get mud in your radiator if you don't have to, because it just leads to the car overheating. And once you get past that point, it's a pretty steady climb here. This section's a real clay base, so this is another section that you really don't want to be tackling in the rain or when it's wet. It gets super slippery. But yeah, once you pass there, track changes again. It's back to an almost two-wheel drive, Nice little touring track with some great views. So that's one of the things about taking this track along here. It's got a bit of everything. And I love tracks like this that change. You know, they're not just one thing. They're not just a ridgeline track. They're not just a crazy bog hole track. There's a little bit of everything. And mostly this is a pretty easy drive along Long Spur, Sandy Flat, Stockyard Track. And that's what it looks like when the GoPro detaches itself from the window. Exactly like that. And the mouse do let go occasionally, and just as quickly as that. Like 1 minute it's fine, and then it's gone. So I just thought I'd leave that in there to show you guys what it looks like, because I don't always catch that on camera. More often than not, it falls off when we're not recording. And I wouldn't say these are bog holes, these are more like just puddles. There's a couple of sections through here that have got a few of these puddles, and you can easily span them and bypass them if you want to, exactly like I did on that corner there. Again, a little bit of a climb here, lose some gravel, and a little bit off camber, depending where you choose to put the line, but nothing difficult. Suspension's still working. It's surprising actually when you look at the footage. It shows the wheel, the suspension's work and the shocks are working harder than you think. And again, just coming down to one of those corners, a little bit of a puddle there. See from the way the tyres cutting through that, it's very, very shallow. Nice firm bottom, nothing to be concerned about at all. And once again we've got another one, so this is one you can drive around. That looks like it could be a little bit deeper. And there was no need for me to find out with such a ready bypass track present. This one though, there really wasn't a bypass per se, but you could certainly see that there were options for choosing the alignment. And again, not that deep, and a good solid base on it. No real concern. Slow in, and a little bit of gas on the way out. Not that in that case it really needed it. So a bit of a rut through the middle of the track there, and that one's caused by water. So we expanded initially, and then of course we've got no choice but to drive through it. Easy enough to tell that one's caused by water, the way it meanders across the track. So yeah, just cruising nicely through this section of the track. It's reasonably undulating, but none of this is super steep, either up or down. Again, you can see there, that's been a soft spot. It was bone dry today when I drove through here, and just for reference, this was filmed in very early November of 2024. So just after the seasonal closure ended, which is typically the end of October. Again, another puddle there. shedding a little bit of mud off the tyre. And yet another one here. A little bit of a drop into that one, but nothing to be concerned about. They've all got a pretty good firm base. Track here just winding its way through the gum trees. It's always interesting. One large one and smaller ones, and as you can see from the text on the screen, coming the other way with Luca last year, I actually got stuck in that bog hole in the 76 in the rain, and Luca took this bypass that was much less well defined at that time. So that is turning into a little bit of a mud hole, but fine for us to get through. And yeah, there was no way I was going to tackle that bog hole again. I mean, if I get stuck on a solo trip, I've got to run my own winch rope out. Good thing with the Sherpa winch and the bar on the 76, I can at least reach in there to reach the clutch. And a little bit lumpy there, as you just saw. I hit that probably going faster than ideal. That was a tree route across the track, and yeah, bled off a fair bit of speed there. So and just span that rutted section there. But as I was saying, with this bar on the 76, at least I can reach the clutch on the winch to manually spool the rope out, which on the pads was something I couldn't do. The ARB bar just didn't have enough space to actually get your hand in there and reach the clutch handle on the winch. And little sort of bog hole here. I reckon there's a spring or a little stream or something. I've just spanned it to stay out of the ruts because it's pretty easy to diff these things out. And again, not deep, nice firm bottom. I was just more concerned with the ruts that somebody had been in there with some bigger tyres and dug some trenches with them, and I'd end up diffed out. A lot of fallen timber beside the track. We are in the Alpine National Park here, so rather than a state forest. So I'm pretty sure you're not meant to gather firewood, perhaps other than for your own use, at a campsite in the national park. So most of that timber is going to probably end up staying there. Have just turned on to Burnt Top Track now, and yeah, so end of Stockyard Track, turning on to Burnt Top Track, and as you can see on the screen there is the Cherry Tree Track on the left hand side, which is a management vehicle only track. Takes you into the back of the Benny's campground, which is accessible off the Upper Rose River Road or Lake Cobbler Road, not sure exactly where it changes its name. Cracking little campsite in there at Benny's. I haven't camped there for a few years, and I probably should go there and do a camp to show it to you guys. So add that one to the list, and yeah, once we're on to Burnt Top Track, we're climbing almost straight away. And again, this section of track here has got a clay base, and it has been very recently graded. So, very different. So, yeah, very different to how it was when Luca and I were coming down here. We were coming down in the rain. It was wet, it was slippery. We took it very slow and steady. And it, having been graded, it's pretty smooth. And you can see I'm maintaining pretty good pace. Can't go too fast over those humps. They're pretty aggressive. Certainly you can see it coming and you know they're there. But yeah, it's a very different track to when Luca and I drove it last. This end and the other end in particular, just completely different. It's a much easier drive now, and it's definitely one that I would recommend. So from the end of Stockyard Track to where Burnt Top Track meets Wild Horse Gap Track, you're looking at 10 kilometres. And there is a magic spot, which is not the highest part on the track, almost, but not quite. But there's a magic spot on this track that's, you know, as good as Blue Rag, as good as some of the views you get anywhere else in the high country, I think. And again, it's not one that people talk about. Well worth taking the time to drive out there and experience this. It is a cracking drive and really, really enjoyable. And I think you'll see what I mean. Those of you that remember it from the last time, the last video up on that spot was with Luca, and we actually got some hail up there. It was crazy that day. We got sun, we got hail, we got rain, and then we got more sun. It was 4 seasons in one day, just nuts. But yeah, pushing on here, climbing up Burnt Top Track, and you can see making really good time. It's, yeah, having been graded very, very recently, I dare say, during the seasonal closure. You could really get along here at a pretty decent sort of clip. Yeah, almost at the top. Well, it's not exactly the top, but it feels like it when you get there. And this is a section I was just talking about. This next kilometre of track, if it's a kilometre, next bit of track is it's worth driving the whole track just to get to this bit, in my opinion. You can see how steep that drop off is on the left hand side there. You've got the bank on the right hand side, and you're coming into a saddle between these two hills. Now, ironically, neither of these is actually Burnt Top Hill. That's nearly right at the end of the track. But this is where you get the best views. And you can see this has all been graded. It's nice and smooth, super easy to drive. And you come into this saddle between the two hills, and it just opens up. You've got views both sides. So look at that view looking back from the front of the car there, out across the valley. Basically looking northeast there. It is a pretty narrow track here. It's definitely a ridgeline spur track right at this spot. And then we start on the next hill. So just pulling up there to enjoy the view. That's the view back down the track. Both sides, slightly different view. Just well worth it. This photo doesn't even remotely do it justice. Just, yeah, cracking little spot right there. And you can see where they've cut it into the hill. Bit of work there with that rock on the side of the track. No small effort to cut the high country tracks out. And as I said, not exactly the top there. We are still climbing, and we go up and down a bit more. I think Burnt Top Hill is the highest part, and we actually don't go over the top of Burnt Top Hill. We go around the side of it, but that is right near the end of the track. And you can see how freshly graded this is. Like, it's a very flat track, very clear, well worth driving. So If you can fit this one in before the seasonal closures come into effect, I definitely recommend it. Some glimpses there of Mount Cobbler. Distinctive shape. And I think I just changed down probably one too many gears there, overestimating how steep this was and how much engine braking I might actually need. So yeah, heading down, but of course, as I said, we haven't actually reached the highest part of the track yet, so invariably what goes down is going to probably come back up again. And in fairly short order, that's exactly the case. Nice steady climb here. You can see some tyre marks already starting to form here. This will develop some ruts over time for sure, but at the moment it should be reasonably similar to what you're seeing on the screen, and this end section of the track really starts to turn into a ridgeline drive with it falling away both sides. That's what I mean. This track is such a cracking drive. I think it should be on everybody's list. Burnt Top Track. You can access it from either Pineapple Flat, or you can come in on Long Spur and get onto it that way, or you can come off Upper Rose River Road on the Basin Track. That access is a little hard to find if you don't know exactly where it is, because it's alongside some private property. So yeah, just climbing up here to what I think is the highest part of the track, and a pretty steady drop off on the side there. Another cracking sort of ridgeline drive. Now, as we're getting close to the end and the track goes around the left hand side, I'm pretty sure on the right hand side there, that was Burnt Top Hill. So we're just about at the end, guys. The track at the bottom here meets up with Wild Horse Gap Track, and Burnt Top Track continues south down to Pineapple Flat. We'll be taking Wild Horse Gap. That'll be in the next episode, in the next video. I'd never driven Wild Horse Gap Track before, and it was certainly one that I was keen to check out and experience for myself. Heard a few stories about it. It's a 13-kilometre run through to the Lake Cobbler Road. So that's what we'll be checking out in the next video, and we'll be heading up to Lake Cobbler itself as well before taking on the Lake Cobbler Track, which it was a little while before. It's been a little while since we last drove that. So yeah, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Like this video if you liked it. Leave some comments down below. I love reading those. And if you regularly watch this channel and haven't yet subscribed, please do think about subscribing. It helps us out heaps. See you in the next video.